Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Rumors versus Facts, the UGA Sports Show, where we focus on Georgia recruiting. But this time of year, we need to focus on the team because recruiting is nice and it's fun to cover, and you always want to see who's going to come in and be that next guy. But Georgia's recruiting class is pretty much done. We're going to have an update tomorrow from Tariq Green over at Buford, who went down to visit Miami. Shout out to Harrison Reno for going to see him. Of course, new offers going out and a lot going on the recruiting side of things. But we need to talk about the Georgia-Alabama game. You want to talk about winning recruiting battles. Those two teams go head-to-head all the time. And a win for Georgia this Saturday could go a long way in some of these recruiting battles. I mean, if you're at Tennessee and you're Kalen DeBoer and you've got a kid in there that's looking at Georgia and Alabama, and you're like, hey, we beat them all the time. Kirby Smart himself, a future, instant college football Hall of Famer, is 1-6 against us. Come play for us. And that will carry weight with some kids. Plus, they got a pretty good war chest. But if Kirby could say, hey, yeah, we beat them for a national title. They came to our house. We beat them there. We're going to beat them. It's Kirby's last white whale that he has to slay. He's won titles. He's won SEC titles. He's turned the tide in Tennessee, Florida, where you name what rivalry, Auburn, Tech, he kills those teams. But if he has one Achilles heel, it's with the Alabama Crimson Tide. And for the first time in his 10-year career, Jed, he gets them at home. Will that matter?
It absolutely matters. I think I talked about this before the season. Like, Georgia's got a lot of big home games and has had a lot of big home games. The Tennessee ones, Texas later this year is going to be huge. I think, though, there's so much added, like, scar tissue, context, like whatever you want to call it. Like, this weekend is going to be an environment that even the Notre Dame game, like, I don't know. Like, obviously that's cool because of the novelty.
No, it's not even close to that.
Playing there. When you add in what this game means, the context, the historical ramifications, all of that stuff, I mean, it is going to be an incredible atmosphere Saturday. I think the weather's supposed to be pretty good too. That always helps. But yeah, this is the one thing Alabama can sell over Georgia right now as a whole. You can sell location and whatever. Kalen DeBoer can say, look, Georgia still can't beat us. It was year one last year. That was his first SEC game, I believe, and we beat them at our place. And Kirby, let's not pretend Kirby Smart isn't recruiting just fine on his own. But if you start to turn that series against Alabama, like you said, that's the last hurdle. Then he's beaten Ohio State. He's beaten Texas twice. He'll have beaten Alabama. He beat Michigan in the playoff a couple years ago. So. Like, there's just so much. I mean, you look at Kirby's press conference today. How many questions did he get about Alabama? 5 or 6? Like, that's what this game means. Is there's so much tacked onto it, other than it's a matchup between two top 15, top 20, wherever Alabama's ranked teams. There's a lot of background and context here that makes this game a lot bigger than the huge game that it already is.
I'm with you there. That's the last bastion, I guess, that he, the last castle he has to defeat is to take them down. And if he does it, it's gonna. I mean, now you're 1-7. That's and if Kirby can't do it, I just don't know. At this point, I'm wondering, can anybody? Now, when I make my prediction later in the week, I'm probably going to pick Alabama to win. And me, I'm not a huge street guy. I said not too long ago that a game 7 years ago has no bearing currently. Mm-hmm. But I do think that sometimes Georgia plays this game differently. They do things differently in this game. And I don't know if they get into their own head, but I might pick Alabama to win just because I'm like, look, I did the same thing with Florida through the first part of Kirby Smart's tenure at Georgia. I kept picking Florida to win. So I'm like, look, they're going to Jacksonville. Georgia plays differently down there. They will make mistakes in Jacksonville. They will not make I don't say just at home, but even on the road, they don't make those mistakes. And I thought this was a very good-looking team through 3 games when it comes to not having dumb penalties. I want to give a shout-out to the offensive line. They kept changing things around, but I don't remember any procedural penalties. I don't remember anybody. And that wasn't the same 5 guys who know each other. And that was mix and match. Tennessee, on the other hand, I think they jumped 4 or 5 times. So anyway, my point is, if Georgia were due to have a bunch of turnovers, miss a field goal, have the offensive line jump, it would be this game. It just it irritates you how when there's no reason they should have made Jalen Milroe look like a Heisman finalist last week.
Like, I looked at that box score earlier, and it is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen, especially when you think of how Milroe looked against Oklahoma, which Georgia's defense is probably better than Oklahoma's, right? Georgia's defense is better than Vanderbilt's. Like, he looked so average at points in that year, and then you look at the Georgia game, and it's ridiculous. It's
Superman.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the more impressive single game performances I've ever seen, and it came from a guy who was up and down the rest of the year, to put it mildly. So that it was like, I remember watching it, and it's just it's like that Tennessee game, how they started last week, but times 1,000, because Georgia and credit to Georgia for coming back and whatever. But the fact that they were in that hole to begin with was just insane. Now, luckily, there's never been a time, right, where Alabama's come into a night game at Sanford Stadium and jumped out to a huge lead. So nobody has to worry about that. But it's a game that I think Georgia's favored. I think they're right to be favored. It's a 3.5 or 4.5. So if it was at a neutral field, it'd pretty much be a pick 'em. But Kalen DeBoer teams have struggled on the road. I think Georgia, that when you talk about is home field going to matter, like based on what we've seen with Kalen DeBoer teams, it's going to matter. Vanderbilt was a road game that you probably had a fan advantage, and they lost. Oklahoma was a road game. What was the other game they lost? I don't remember last year. And Florida State this year, they struggled. So Georgia's got that going in their favor. For sure, just based on the trends we've seen with Kalen DeBoer teams over the past year and 3 or 4 weeks.
Kirby kind of shut down the whole is Georgia a tough place to play, and I've given Kirby Smart a lot of credit for changing the way the fans react inside Sanford Stadium, mainly because for years we had a running debate on the dog vent. You got to remember the dog vent has been around since like 1997, and back in the olden days, you would actually have an argument between the fans who would sit down and the fans that would stand. And you'd have somebody come on the board and say, we went to the game, but all I saw was the back pocket, and the skull ring of this guy who stood in front of me, stood the whole damn game, and I could never see anything. And if I wanted to see anything, I had to stand up. And I'm 84 years old. I don't want to do this. I paid my money. I want to be able to see it. And of course, the guy on the board who was, skull ring from Chickamauga, Georgia, is like, hey, old man, stand the hell up. The team needs you, and there was the part of the crowd or the fan base that was considered rude. And then they would make fun of the wine and cheese crowd who, rolled in, I think, right around kickoff and were out of there by, 4 minutes to go in the third quarter. And they would cheer when things happened. But Kirby, I go back to that Arkansas game at noon when they came in undefeated. And he's like, look, I need you to be there. I need you to be loud. We got College game day coming. And I need you to affect this team. And Georgia fans started realizing that they could do it. I say start, maybe they knew all along, but I just didn't see it. And now when those teams come in, it gets so loud down by the student section. And that stadium it is a dangerous place to play. And Kirby today kind of shut that down. He's like, oh, well, they're all tough to play. It's the character, it's the talent you play across from you. And I'm like, this guy's making it sound not like a home field advantage, but like a meh advantage. It's like it's like it's as hard as those other places. I'm like, Kirby, now's the chance for you to reach out to your folks and give them the advantage, because it was sure as hell loud in Tuscaloosa last year. You were there. Mm-hmm. They can affect teams. So I'm like, Kirby, now's your chance to kind of. And to be fair, he's made Georgia a tougher place to play through talent and through instruction, if you will. But I just he didn't sound like there was that big of a fan. Maybe it's just all, poor old Georgia. He's, sandbagging the whole time. But normally if he's ever given a chance to talk about the home field advantage, he will implore the students to come out early and the fan base to be loud and say, "We need you." And today that was low hanging fruit that he missed or avoided.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I hadn't thought about it until you said it, but yeah, he's and even he's done that in his opening statement in the past. He's like, "Yeah, it's a big game. We need the fans there, whatever." I think my whole theory on this, because everybody watching the show is here for my theories, is a great home field advantage are the places that make the home team play above their, punch above their weight. And we've seen that so many times with Auburn in the past couple of years.
Yes.
You see that at LSU, see it at Tennessee. I think of Virginia Tech as a place like that. I think of Oregon.
Oklahoma, Clemson, Wake Forest, UNC.
I don't think, to be honest, I don't know that Sanford Stadium necessarily in that category, but like you said, we have seen when the fans are needed, they answer the bell, right? You mentioned the Arkansas game. The last 2 Tennessee games were ridiculous. The Notre Dame game was ridiculous. I mean, the Alabama game 10 years ago was insane until it wasn't, and the weather sucked. So, we've again. Is this a place that is going to be, stadium's going to be falling down for Kentucky at noon next week? Probably not. But when the fan base is needed, I think, especially in the past few years, they have answered the call every time and made it just as loud as anywhere. So, and I think that is going to be what's like Nicholas Moss says, that's what's expected Saturday by Kirby Smart. And that's, I think the fan base is going to deliver again because of everything that. So many of these people hate Alabama so much just because of what that school has been. Everybody hates the guy that wins, especially when you're the guy that's getting beat for that guy to win, right? I mean, you could think, Alabama denied Georgia a shot at a national championship 2 years ago. They almost denied them a shot at a championship in 21. They beat them for a championship in 17. They denied them a shot in 18. So they lost in 20 and obviously last year. So there's a lot, again, of scar tissue there that I think is very fresh in the minds of students who grew up Georgia fans, of people who have been longtime fans. It's just going to make this different than any other game on the schedule this year or in recent. It's insane. Like this is a schedule thing, but it is insane that it's been 10 years since Alabama has been to Athens. Like that's nuts. And
look, if there's a way for Georgia to get screwed, they're going to get screwed. And I'm telling you, when the schedule rolls out tomorrow night, 7 for the next 4 years, whatever, Georgia's going to get screwed again. You saw Tennessee and Florida got nice notes on their future schedules. But if it's like Georgia's not going to play Texas A&M, and then the back-to-back games at Auburn, where Auburn's like, it's too hard for us to play Georgia and Alabama at the end of the season. We need to move those around. Okay, Auburn, we'll move it. Oh, and by the way, Georgia, you have to go back to Auburn instead of it's like, wait a minute, they're the ones requesting the move. Screw that. If there's going to be 2 home games, they should be in Athens. But I have a long list of real and perceived slights to the University of Georgia when it comes to such things. And right now, for folks who are just joining us, we have a bunch of people just came on. We're kind of talking about the Georgia-Alabama overall game and some of the, I'll say, this is kind of off the field stuff. This is the subjective things, a streak, how badly Kirby wants this, how badly the fans want this, how the fans can affect it. We're going to move on in a minute and actually talk about what's going to happen on the field. But to me, the pageantry of it, the history of it, some things that Kirby said are worth noting before we break down, is Ty Simpson actually the hottest quarterback out there? Is Gunnar Stockton going to run it down their throat? What's going to happen? But just kind of giving you a pacing of where we are on tonight's show. I want to give a shout out to Darth Flyer, who gave us a nice super chat there. He says, my heart is screaming Georgia, but my head is telling me Bama until Georgia proves otherwise. Regardless, I'll be loud and obnoxious Saturday night. Go Dogs. I'm right there with Darth Flyer. Again, last week I didn't pick Georgia to beat Tennessee because of the streak. I'm like, I think that Georgia could beat – I said Georgia will beat Tennessee handily. They'll win big if they don't give Tennessee gifts. And I was thinking turnovers. I was not thinking 75-yard touchdown passes, back-to-back long bombs. Those were also gifts, but not the way I intended. And it was two basically gifts on long passes that, Georgia could have won that much more handily. But as it was, they had to win in overtime. And I'm with Darth Flyer here. This is one I'm not going to pick based on the streak. I'm just going to base it because Georgia plays differently in this game. Kirby coaches differently. I talk to people on the staff, and they're like, yeah, we hadn't done that all year. SEC championship game, for example. And this is how I almost think he almost think the staff outthinks themselves, or they overthink it, or they overplan. And I hope this year they like their chances more and just kind of play Georgia football instead of, hey, we're 1-4, we got to do something different. We're 1-5, we got to do something different. And they kind of back themselves in their corner with something they're not used to.
Yeah, and I think another thing too, there's nobody left, I don't think, from that 21 team. So no one that has beaten Alabama. Again, the guys on this team, they lost to them in 23 and were denied a chance at a championship. And then, and then they
lose. They lose to them one time and they drop to 6th. And the top 4 teams go. Yeah. On my list of perceived and real slights when it comes to University of Georgia, that is number 1.
I mean, if Georgia wins, I don't even remember how
and Tyler Simpson was.
I don't remember how the rankings shook out, but Georgia's in the playoff and is probably the 1 seed and is favored to win a championship anyway. And then last year, we know what happened last year. So this team, Kirby talked about this team being a young team, a hungry team, all that stuff. This is a team that hadn't beaten Alabama. Yeah. And I think that is going to motivate a lot of these guys. It's going to motivate Gunnar Stockton. Gunnar Stockton, growing up in this state as following Georgia, he knows the history of this game. You look at, Zachariah Branch said today, yeah, I watched that Georgia-Alabama game last year. Like, this is a national rivalry now that people are very aware of. And I think, again, it's just there's something different about this game. I think it's just a different beast. There's something special about this game that has developed into. You know better than I do. Like, all I really know is what this game is now. And before, it used to be Alabama's just another SEC opponent. It's playing LSU. Yeah. It's playing, not Auburn, but playing, Ole Miss. That's what it was. And now it's taken on a life of its own.
And I think there's I don't want to say there's the revenge factor for Kirby. Kirby would be happy to lose this game if he knew he could win a title. He's a big picture guy. And he looks at each game as a chapter. That's not to say there are teams that he likes or coaches he likes and dislikes more than the other. I know he's not a big fan of, say, Shane Beamer, not a big fan of Florida, and there's certain games that he wants to win. You want to beat Alabama, because that's the one thing he hasn't done. But he's going to look at the big picture, and if they wind up losing, he'll be like, okay, well, we're on to Kentucky. We got them at noon. We got Texas and Ole Miss. Everything's still ahead of us. Alabama needs to win this one. Alabama needs this more than Georgia. They already have a loss. So this is a big one for them. And I don't care what they did to Wisconsin and what ULM. There's a large part of the Alabama fan base that is not very happy with Kalen DeBoer. So he needs this. And if he can say, look, I'm 2-0 against Georgia, that will go a long way, despite, losing to Vandy last year. And Vandy's pretty good. But you mentioned the game, and I want to read something to you. And this is something I need to look up. But it came from a good friend of mine. And Georgia has played Alabama the last 8 matchups. You talk about it being a national game. Every time after this game is over, you see that the ratings are through the roof. They always are. Last 8 meetings, Georgia and Alabama they've hosted College Game Day. They played in 2002, 2003, 2007, 2008, 12, 15, 17, 18, 21, 23, 24, and this year. And of those, College Game Day only missed 2003 and 2015. Oh, and this weekend. So it is. That's Zachariah Branch. Yeah, I watched that game last year. Everybody, it is a monumental matchup. It's like Michigan, Ohio State. It's like it's the game. you know that this is going to determine national outcome titles. So that's what probabilities, and that's what we're going to see this Saturday. If Georgia wins, now they've got a huge buffer zone. Big wins over ranked teams. They look good. If they lose now, they can't make a mistake. And they're right there with Alabama and Tennessee. So just kind of pushing it there. I'm going to go to move on to some of the stuff we're going to see on the field. I thought that Kirby kind of ducked a question when we asked him about his offensive line, the health of Juan Gaston and Ernest Green. He's like, I don't know. I don't believe that for a second. That's just me.
Yeah, I think that's playing coy. You get the whole. I would bet a lot of money that every guy that's potentially injured is going to be listed as questionable on the injury report all week. But yeah, I think that's huge. Again, even just to have the same 5 guys, and Dontrell Glover played okay against Tennessee for a true freshman. He Michael Looney, it was rough. Gaston played okay. Ernest Green played okay. Just to have the continuity up front is huge. But yeah, I think, and granted, Kirby hasn't seen the guys practice since at least Friday, if they even practice Friday. So when we see them tomorrow, they'll have practiced twice this week. And now, is he going to give us an answer on how much they practiced? Not a very detailed one, if he gives one at all. But I think he has an idea of what the offensive line is going to look like, even if he's.
Well, he saw him twice last we spoke to him, at least a minimum of 2 times, and he gets a update from this training staff every morning. And I guarantee you, they had him on Monday morning. I'm sure he got one, and again, an update's an update, but he kind of ducked there. To me, how Georgia's offensive line on the right side, and the left side has some issues too, but he said these guys need to grow up, not in a mean way. He's like, hey, they got to get better. And if, as you say, if Dontrell Glover has to go and Bo Hughley have to go, then they need to, in other words, if you're going to lose Gaston and Green, your replacements have to grow up and be ready to come in. You can't just pin all your hopes on on health issues. It's just look, we brought you into the University of Georgia to play offensive line. You have to play at a championship level. If we want to be SEC champs, we want to be national champs. Hey, Dontrell, I know you're a true freshman, but I need you to play better. I need Bo Hughley. I need you to be better. Hey, Daniel Calhoun, where have you been? Michael Uni, you can't give up sacks around the edge, man. So I think that between that and maybe finding a safety, either one of those might be my 2 biggest concerns for Georgia right now.
Yeah, I think you're going to see Alabama attack the corners downfield, because you look at Tennessee gets 2 touchdowns on plays where the Ellis Robinson the coverage wasn't horrible. He was behind the guy, but it would have taken a good throw to complete it. The throw was so bad, or it wasn't so bad. It was underthrown, and Ellis Robinson doesn't find the ball, runs into the guy, and commits a penalty, and then the guy catches it and scores. And then Daniel Harris, I still don't understand how I watched him for 20 yards run down the field in perfect position, and then the play's not made when the ball's in the air. So, but if you're Alabama, you're thinking
it was a punt pass.
Yeah, if you're Alabama, you're thinking, okay, we can go at these guys down the field. Now, I think if you're Georgia, you do like that you've been able to stop the run pretty well so far. So I think if you're, every defensive coach wants to make an offense one-dimensional one way or another. And I think if you're Georgia, the thought is we're going to take away the run and make them beat us through the air. The thing that worries you is Tennessee almost beat you almost exclusively through the air. So that's going to be the thing is can the corners hold up down the field? Can KJ Bolden, Kyron Jones, Corey Thomas plays, whoever, Adrian Maddox, whichever one of those guys is in at safety, can they defend down the field, over the middle, all that stuff? Because Tennessee had a lot of success intermediate to deep passing game.
Who's Georgia's other starting safety besides KJ Bolden?
And it's been Kyron Jones is 3 for 3. But I think that's still, and it's interesting because I didn't even realize it during the game, but none of the transfer safeties played against Tennessee. So is that?
Well, that's the point I was about to go to. I'm like, you brought in 3 trying to get one because you weren't And I'm not banging on Kyron Jones. It's just how often do you see his name called out? I mean, where's the other guys aren't rotating in? It's just I feel like you've got one safety trying to do the job of two.
And is that, is that because Kyron Jones has established himself as the guy, or is it because Tennessee's got a unique offense? We're going to play the two guys in Jones and Ja'Cory Thomas who have at least, they've not necessarily got a ton of game action against it, have prepped for it, have seen it, all that kind of stuff. I don't know. Maybe this is Kyron Jones's job and he's taking off and running with it. He did make some nice hits in run support. I noticed when I was rewatching the game, but I don't know. We will see.
He registered a number of tackles, but it's just I'm thinking about the ball in the air. We know Janelle Aguero was great in zone instead of man. We saw him make some great stops there, but where's the help? I mean, hell, even KJ Bolden got turned around on that second touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, look, dude, make a move. You got two options. Pick one. And he kind of went deer in headlights, and that's unlike him. He's normally right there to make plays. So I'm going to know where's somebody against Ryan Williams, who, what did he have, 177 yards against Georgia last year or something like that?
What was it? 66, I think, is what I wrote earlier, including the one that everybody's seen 1,000 times by now, where, again, guys didn't make a play on the ball in the air, and then they missed some tackles on top of it. So,
yeah, see, I'm here with Shaheed. Kyron Jones did play well against the run. I mean, if you look on the stat sheet, he's up there with the leading tacklers. My point is, when we're talking about the ball in the air, like to see some of the safeties actually pick off some of these balls and help out on those, long passes down the field. Like, stop giving up the explosives. That would make me. And as it points out, he was 17 years old when he made that. So, and if there was time for a Georgia D-line to generate a pass rush, it would be this game. If we were to blitz, it's game over for us. That's a very good possibility, Darth Flyer. It's the issue that if you're going to generate a pass rush, some of that is based on the fact that you really have to worry about the run. Kirby's going to take away the run first. And a lot of these teams realize that you're just not going to get – they're not taking a 5-step drop, 7-step drop. They're not doing the show passes. They're getting rid of the ball so quickly. There's just not time to really affect the QB. But if he's going to sit back there and you could get to the quarterback, you would greatly help out your secondary, and vice versa. If those guys can cover, or make it a little bit tighter, then the quarterback has to wait a second. He's waiting for something to open up. He's going through his progressions because the first option isn't open, and then boom, they get to him. So it's complementary just on that side.
Yeah, and again, the questions of the secondary needs to play better, this and this. Well, secondary is only going to cover so long, right? Like if Georgia gets pressure, and even if you don't, like Kirby Smart said today, and I think he's right. Like, it's not all about sacks necessarily, but even if you get pressure and force Simpson off a spot and he has to scramble and he throws it out of bounds, or instead of setting his feet and taking the deep shot, he has to check it down. It's a short gain and incomplete. Like, all that stuff adds up. And yes, I think
that's my point.
Yeah. But again, Kirby Smart said last year, Georgia had chances to sack Jalen Milroe, and they didn't. Xavier McLeod had one last week off the top of my head where he gets in the backfield and Joey Aguilar kind of, gets away and I think completed a pass for a chunk gain. So it's kind of like, on the one hand, it's not all about sacks. On the other hand, it's like the sacks are still pretty cool to get every once in a while. And even, we saw against Texas last year, Dalen Everett, Georgia had a ton of sacks, but Dalen Everett forces a fumble, sets Georgia up in good field position. I think one of the sacks on Arch Manning was a fumble that created good field position. And then you get the quarterbacks rattled, hopefully, if you're Georgia, and then that affects things. Like, pressure can do so much, and this is the time where those guys have got to step up. And pass rush has been something we've talked about with this team for a couple of years. And if you're Gabe Harris, if you're Quintavious Johnson, Elo Modozi, do we see him instant? I think we see a lot more Chris Cole off the edge, because I think it's becoming more apparent every drive that he might be the best edge rusher on this team. And yeah, do you like him at inside linebacker? Sure. But I think you need him more on the edge. And I think we're going to see more of that just because he's the guy that has gotten some consistent pressure off the edge. And I think we're going to see plenty of him coming off the edge on Saturday, I think.
I like when Schumann calls him up through the A gap. Drops one, he's got his two inside linebackers. He drops one to kind of help with the crossing patterns and such. And then one guy comes, shoots, screaming through the A gap. It doesn't always get home, but when it does, it's fun to watch. That's just a thing. But I'm with you there. The most important thing Georgia can do is just get some negative plays. I know we like to talk about sacks. We like to talk about getting pressure affecting the QB. But I'm like, look, anything that is a lost down, just tackling at the line of scrimmage, a tackle for loss. I don't need a sack. I just need the quarterback, an incompletion. Make it then, like you said, the small things add up, because once they're looking at a 2nd and 10, 3rd and 8, the probability of what they're going to run becomes so much clearer. Where Georgia is just getting absolutely gashed is on 1st down pass plays. You're not sure they're going to run it. You're not sure if they're going to throw it. So you load up to stop the run, because most teams run on 1st down. And they throw it, and they just hit you. Now they're looking at 2nd and 2, 3rd and 1, and it's like you just Joey Aguilar, he had Georgia just falling all over itself on 1st down. And then Alabama did it to him last year. Just 1st down passes. Maybe there needs to be a schematic shift there, and just assume that the teams are going to come out throwing. Now, when you do that and they run on you, and you're like, well, shit, now we're looking at 2nd and 3 because they picked up 7 yards because we were trying to take away the pass. Now everybody's pulling out their hair going, damn it, Glenn Schumann, what are you doing? So I get it that it's tough, but if they can do anything to affect this kid on the road, as Kirby said, he's the hottest QB in America. And if you look at his last 2 games, he's absolutely torching everybody. But he did play a bad Wisconsin team in ULM. What happens when things don't go his way? What happens if you are affecting him? What happens if you are able to pressure him a little bit? Like you said, get him off the spot. Make him convert a lot of 3rd and longs. Does Ty Simpson look unstoppable then?
Yeah, and again, that's where I think the defensive front, I mean, we talked so much about coming into this year about what's the defensive line going to look like. Kristen Miller's been healthy and playing well. Jordan Hall has played well. We've seen Gabe Harris pop a couple times. And even Kirby Smart said last week, Gabe Harris and Quatavius Johnson have done a great job setting the edge, which that's been one of those buzzwords for the Georgia fan base over the past couple of years. But so I think I think this has been something that Kirby said with Tennessee before, is when you're defending the run against them, you have to do more with less in terms of playing guys in the box, because Tennessee spreads the field so wide. And I think that can kind of apply to all the defense, right? If you can stop the run with 4, maybe 5, that's all the more guys you can drop in coverage. So that's going to be the test for the team, because this is big boy football, right? Like if you're Kristen Miller, if you're Jordan Hall, Elijah Griffin, this is the big time for him. And Tennessee was too, but these are these games that you come to Georgia to play it. Alabama at home at night, and your head coach comes to you and says, look, guys, y'all are 310 pounds. I need y'all to stop the run so I can protect my secondary. This is showtime for those guys.
No, I'm with you there. I think that Raylan Wilson could have a breakout game. And that's not a shot against C.J. Allen. It's just earlier when the person said, you expect the fan base to show up. I expect C.J. Allen to be the leading tackler on the team. But I think this could be a big game for Raylan Wilson. Like, I'm with you on Chris Cole. Daniel Harris or Ellis Robinson knows they are going to get picked on. And, of course, they'll throw against Dalen Everett as well, especially on some of the routes. But you got to know that if Janelle Aguero has to cover the slaughter, the Ty Simpson is going to look to see, do I have a star in coverage or do I have a safety in coverage? Whoever has that route, I'm going to pick on them even more so than you're going to see him go after Daniel Harris or Ellis Robinson. But I'm with you. That's what they're going to do. So your defense, and again, we're talking a lot about this defense because last week did not fill you full of a lot of confidence. offensively, I think Georgia has the ability to. This doesn't feel like the Alabama defenses of old, and maybe I just haven't read up enough about them. But when I look over there, I'm not like, oh man, can Georgia score on these guys? And we felt that way in years past. But I'm thinking, so I guess to me, it comes down to, can Georgia stop Alabama? But I guess we should also be asking, can Alabama stop Georgia?
Yeah, because I think the Georgia offense, really proved itself last week. Gunnar Stockton threw the infamous deep ball a couple times. And I think one of the things I took away most from that game was we finally saw like what the quarterback run game is going to look like in a I don't want to say a real game, but a real game, right? Like red zone, short yardage. We saw Gunnar, it's QB power, it's QB sweeps, it's keeping it on read ups. And we saw all that stuff. I mean, Gunnar.
Oh, in the first drive.
I mean, Gunnar ended up with 13 carries. And yeah, it's only for 38 yards, but and sacks are factored into that too. But, you look at Florida State against Alabama, Tommy Castellanos had 16 carries for 78 yards. I don't know how sacks factored in because I wasn't locked in on that game. But I think you're going to see that because that's, again, it's all the cliches, right? It's an extra guy to defend. It's an extra guy to block. Like all that stuff that you can create with quarterback run game. That's how you do it. And when you've got an offensive line that, hey, you need to run the ball efficiently, especially in the red zone. You got to score touchdowns in the red zone. Kirby Smart said that today. Quarterback run game can be a huge, huge, huge weapon down there. And I think the Tennessee game gave us a good idea of how that's going to be used against the gauntlet, I guess, of the SEC schedule.
Well, the Alabama defensive coordinator said the same thing. He's talking about Gunnar Stockton and what he can do with his legs. He says, they know that in the red zone, here comes Gunnar. Third down, here comes Gunnar. They know it's coming, but it's really hard to stop it. And if you gear up and you just, like you said, that one extra guy to defend, now you don't have as much coverage in the support in the run game or in the passing game because you got a spy and they're trying to stay on him. So I'm with you there. And it feels like that when Georgia has struggled against Alabama, it's always been when they've had a running QB who just, you got everything covered. You got everything locked up tight. And then here comes Milroe or Hurts or whoever just scooting out there. You're like, son of a. So hey, it'd be nice to see the shoe on the other foot for a change, and all of a sudden they're frustrated because Georgia's quarterback keeps scooting through there and keeping the chains moving. I will be very interested to see how Colby Young and Zachariah Branch play in this game. We need to touch on the fact that those two transfers are looking fantastic for Georgia right now. Those guys have seen this contest. They've, like I said, it's a national game for everybody. They grew up watching it. They've seen national championships. They've seen SEC championships between these two. And we could talk about Ryan Williams all day. And is he still 17 or has he ever turned 18? But he's not even the most dangerous receiver, that guy right now. So they're really talented. But what about Branch? This is a chance for him when, he left USC. There's a guy who could really do a number on the big stage. This is where Colby Young could go from, middle of the pack to a high draft pick in this game. They are making their cases for, coach, give me the ball. Dylan Bell's like, look, I got some payback against this Alabama team that I need. Heck,
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of
Humphreys has some payback he wants.
Yeah, and then you think, Colby Young, I think, was the guy who got targeted on the interception at the end, I believe, where Beck threw a jump ball to him. So, but yeah, with Zach Branch, like that's the guy that can be such a mismatch, right? Like if you put him in the slot, who can defend him in the open space? We've seen the speed when he gets the ball on the edge and blows past guys with the angle. Like the Tennessee one last week, we saw it in the press box. And it's like, okay, that he's got a shot to get to the first down marker on 3rd and 7 or whatever it was. And then he's a few steps down the field and you're like, oh, he's gone. He's gone. He's gone. So, and then do you build something off of that? Do you use we've seen teams where, you have Branch go like he's going to take a screen. You got Colby Young and Dylan Bell setting up the block. Then they pump fake and run right by the defender that's coming up to take on the block. Like all the stuff that you can build on after a performance like they had against Tennessee is all there. And I think for Branch, one of the things I was impressed by last week, we saw him go over the middle on a couple of slants and make catches in traffic. And then that's not to say he couldn't do that, because I haven't.
Well, he did have some troubles. He had some troubles with that last year.
He's got a reputation as a speed guy, right? And I think you see him going over the middle. I mean, one of them was on 4th down, which one shows the trust Gunner has in him. But Kirby Smart said today he is willing to do whatever it takes for this team, whether it's blocking, whether it's going over the middle and catching a Raven County fastball from Gunner, sliding for a first down. So that's why you bring these guys in, is to, you don't bring them in to go 45 yards on screen against Marshall. You bring them in because it's world-class speed and athleticism versus world-class speed and athleticism on the other side. And this is where you need those guys to come up big. And we mentioned this, I think, last week too. These are the games where you need your receivers to make plays. And not every – it's like some of them aren't drops, but they're catches that should be made. You need your receivers to make more of those. The London Humphreys catch at the end is a perfect example. If that ball hadn't been caught, would it have been counted as a drop? Maybe not. It was kind of a difficult catch. But that's one that a receiver needs to make if your team is going to win on the road in Knoxville. And I think that's the same thing this week. Gunner Stockton needs his receivers to make plays with the ball in their hands, making some contested catches, all that stuff, if they're going to be able to beat Alabama.
I'm with you. I want to point back something that Chris said. He said, rushing the ball and defending the rush has been the Alabama weakness so far. I would like to see them stay committed to it. We're talking about the wide receivers on both sides and the effects they can make, and the quarterbacks throwing the balls. But this is a Georgia-Alabama game. And you and I both know that whoever wins the rushing battle tends to win the game. It is, I say tends, I think it's like 95%. This is some ridiculous percentage of whoever rushes for the most yards wins the game. Interestingly enough, Georgia and Alabama both played 3 teams. Georgia played one good team in there. Alabama played one good team in there. Alabama is 12th in the SEC, giving up 138 yards rushing. Georgia gives up 82 yards a game rushing. Now, sometimes when you're kicking your opponent's ass, they have to throw the ball. So,
right.
That's take all that with a grain of salt. But we had a lot of questions answered last week about Georgia just throwing and catching. Can Gunner Stockton throw it deep? Can they attack vertically? But I could definitely see a situation where this is the game where you get you let Nate Frazier and Chauncey Bowens, maybe even Josh McCray, you get a little and of course, if Peanut's feeling healthy enough, you bring him in there. But this could be one of those where, hey, Ty Simpson can't throw crap if he's on the sideline. And if Georgia can have one of those 8-minute drives down the field and punch it in, again, Kirby's going to be big pictures. Like, look, I don't need to impress anybody with us throwing it all over the field. If we want to go old school, smash them. I think my guys can mash your guys. And we'll play ball control, possession, make sure nothing bad happens with the ball in the air. I could see them saying, look, I think people are going to get very frustrated because I think that Mike Bobo is just going to hammer the run and try to break through.
You think back to that 22, I guess, Tennessee game where, if Georgia had called a play action pass at any point in that long drive to start the second half, there wouldn't have been a Tennessee guy within miles of whoever was open. But Kirby's like, look, the weather sucks. We have a lead. I'm going to shorten this game, and I don't care what the final score looks like. That game was 27-13 maybe, and that game was more dominating than that. But Kirby Smart doesn't care. He shortened that game by saying, hey, look, our guys are dominating your guys. We're just going to mash you and suck up 9 minutes of clock and then kick a field goal and go from there. So he, like you said, he's not out to impress anybody. He's not out to make a statement. He wants to get a win. And if it's 3-0, if it's 103-0, he doesn't care.
Yeah. There's those people forget it's the first quarter of the national championship game when Georgia finally broke the run game versus Alabama. Yeah. Fourth. Yeah. It was the fourth quarter. He makes a correction. Yeah. 3/4 of people just losing their damn minds. And we go back and we're like, oh, Todd Monken's the greatest of all time. They were dog cussing him and Stetson Bennett for 3 quarters because they were playing like, spring dead goats. I mean, it was just god awful. And it was, you banging your head against the wall, but then eventually all those body blows come down. And hell, their defensive coordinator said the same thing today. So it's a situation where he knows that Mike Bobo is probably going to stick to the run, because if they can be successful at all in the run game, it opens up the pass game. And like you said, Kirby was like, look, if we throw the ball, bad things can happen. Good things can, but I know if I can run the ball for 4.5 yards, we're going to keep running it. We're going to run it all night, and we're going to make our fans just go nuts, and the band will be playing, and we'll be looking at 3rd and 1s, and I got a running quarterback. I expect to see them run it a lot, and then we'll be sitting there. If they do and they run it a lot and Georgia does win, we'll be like, yeah, they won, but what happened to the pass game? That'll be me on the post-game overreaction show. Go ahead and call it my shot. All right. Last thoughts here. I have not looked into the Alabama kicking game, but I do like what Georgia has. We got to speak to Brett Thorson today. That guy can change the field with his punting, and then and his backup apparently can kick the shit out of the ball.
Yeah, that's what the streets say. And by the streets, I mean Brett Thorson and his lovely Australian accent. But yeah, I mean, that's close games coming down to special teams is like a cliche, right? But I mean, it is, and you think
it's a field goal game. So
to go back to that Arkansas game you mentioned earlier, Georgia dials up that punt block for Dan Jackson, and Jameer White falls out on the end zone, and game's over. I think that is what made it 21-0 or 24-0 or whatever it was, and game was over. So if this is the time to dial up if Georgia's got a special punt block or anything that they've noticed on film, and Kirby Smart has been very good, and his staff, like credit to the staffers, the player personnel analysts, all that out there, at finding those things in the past, they're going to try to exploit it at some point, and those are the things that can change a game. So yeah, that the special teams. I mean, I think again with Peyton Woodring and Brett Thorson, with the holders, snappers, whatever they've got around them, Georgia's not going to be on the bad end of special teams battles going into a game all year. There might be teams as good. I don't know if there's anybody better in the country as an all-around special teams group.
Yeah, Georgia's 4-4 in field goal attempts. Bama's 3-4. And granted, both teams played 2 mediocre opponents. You only had to play one really good one, and so not too much there. But just I'm thinking the reason I was kind of bringing it up, I was thinking this might be the game we see Zach Branch actually do something. And I don't mean that in a mean way, like he hasn't done anything to date. It's just he hasn't had a lot of opportunities. Remember, other than him being a, 3rd down conversion machine and a touchdown scoring machine, they brought him in to be kind of an Isaiah McKenzie. This is a return guy that if he catches a punt, gets to return it, he does great. He was a freshman All-American with 700+ yards in return game. Maybe he gets a chance this game to return a kick, return a punt. I could definitely see this whole game changing on a special teams play like that. And I need to go back, and I'll do this before tomorrow's show with Coach Don. I'll check out, the Alabama return game and their kicking situation. But again, I like Georgia's run game against Alabama. I like that the wide receivers are doing really well. I worry more about the defense. I worry about the, kind of right side of the offensive line. But I'm not worried about the special teams. If it's going to be a punt or kickoff right now, has Georgia given up any return yards this year in the punt game? I don't want to jinx them, but
I mean, not that jumps out off the top of my head, at least, which is, I guess, because remember they had the one, I don't know who it was against, but like the guy muffed it and then fell back on it. So maybe that counts as a yard. But yeah, not much. And you look at, London Humphreys and KJ Bolden and Talon Taylor has kind of been the gunners. They've done pretty well so far. So, and I don't think Brett Thorson, like he's fully back into the zone. Yeah, like he's had a couple that I think he would say are not his best, and so maybe the bye week helped him get even that much more back to his old form as well. So, but yeah, again, Georgia's gonna Georgia's going to enter pretty much every game this year, at least looking at a push on the special teams front.
I'm not seeing anything that really stands out. I mean, both teams are not exactly getting huge punt returns. Let's see, Georgia has given up 5 yard or averaging 5 yards a game. That's not much. Alabama's only giving up 1. So should be fun. I'm just saying, when we're looking for the what might win, what might cost you the game, what might put you over the top. We've talked about the fan base. We talked about the coaches. Talked about the streaks. Talked about the all the stuff off the field, and then we talk about stuff on the field, from quarterbacks to long snappers. You know, this is going to be a tough game to win, and Georgia definitely has capability. There's a reason they're favored. Being at home is going to be huge, and if you're a Georgia fan, I know it's frustrating that you haven't beaten these guys as much as you want to, but you got to feel like Tennessee did. This is your year. You got to feel like this is your shot. So I'm loving it. All right, that's all that I had for the show. Anything else you want to touch on?
I wanted to give a shout out to my dad. Jeff May made his first hole-in-one on my bachelor trip over the weekend. That was awesome.
Fantastic.
But other than that, yeah, again, I think
this is a sign. That's a sign. Take Georgia by 50.
Yeah, he'll be locked in Saturday for sure. But no, I think, again, like you said, this is going to be. There's a lot. The thing about it is, like, I think at the end of the day, if Georgia loses this game, there's this season's not over, right? It's everything's still in front of you. You could probably absorb one more loss and still be in good shape to make the playoff. But this is a mental thing. Like, beating Alabama means more to the program right now, certainly the fan base, than beating any other opponent. So I think the atmosphere is going to be special. The game's going to be special because these games between Georgia and Alabama always are. They're always classics. And I don't know. This is certainly the best shot Georgia's had to beat Alabama in a while, I would say. Now, do they get it done? Who's to say? But they got a good shot, I think.
Yeah, just get out of their own heads and stand a good chance. All right, folks, that's all the time we have for this week's show. Tune in tomorrow at noon. We'll have Coach Donnan on. I'm sure he will have a lot to say about this Georgia-Alabama game. He always has some great insights, and I won't say he has I told you so, because he usually doesn't like to bring those up. I bring them up when he does it. But, it's always a great time to have Coach Donnan on the show, and we will talk to him tomorrow at noon. So join us then, and we'll see you all later.